What would you do if everything you'd built, your dreams, your home, your heart, was crumbling before your eyes? In a forgotten corner of a fading town, one man's diner stood on the edge of ruin, its lights dimming, its tables empty. But one cold night, a single act of kindness, a bowl of soup offered to a stranger, set off a chain of events that no one could have predicted. A mother and her child, carrying secrets of their own, walked through that door, and what happened next will leave you speechless. Stay with us until the end, because this story isn't just about food. It's about redemption, betrayal, and a twist so shocking it changed a town forever. Where are you watching from? Drop it in the comments, and let's dive into a story that will grip your heart and not let go. The wind howled down the cracked pavement of a quiet downtown street, where shuttered storefronts stood like gravestones of a once thriving community. Neon lights flickered weakly above the smudged glass of Mason's Diner, a relic of better days when laughter and clinking plates filled the air. It was late November, the kind of cold that sank into your bones and made you feel like the world had turned its back on you. Across the street, Vaughn's Bistro glowed with sleek arrogance, its chrome fixtures and pulsing music mocking the faded red letters above Mason's door. Inside, Jeremiah Mason, a black man in his mid-40s with deep-set eyes and a salt and pepper beard, moved with the slow deliberateness of someone carrying a weight no one else could see. He stacked chairs, wiped the counter for the third time that night, and flipped the open sign to closed with a sigh that seemed to carry years of exhaustion. The diner was nearly empty. A lone elderly woman sipped tea in the corner, her eyes fixed on a newspaper, and a teenager scrolled aimlessly on his phone, earbuds drowning out the world. No one looked up. No one ever did anymore. Jeremiah wasn't a talker, not because he lacked words, but because life had taught him they often fell on deaf ears. Orphaned young, raised in foster homes, he'd built Mason's Diner from nothing, pouring every penny and piece of himself into its worn booths and creaky floors. It wasn't just a business. It was his refuge, his proof that he could belong somewhere. But the world had shifted. Vaughn's Bistro, owned by the slick, well-connected Richard Vaughn, had stolen his customers with its Instagram-worthy dishes and whispered rumors that Jeremiah's food was unhygienic, outdated, or worse. Lies, all of them, but lies stick when they come from a man with money and a smile that dazzled the right people. Just last week, a suited man dining at Mason's had leaned in as he paid his bill, his voice low and smug. "Why keep fighting, man? Sell this dump. Nobody wants your kind of food anymore." He'd smirked, tossed a tip too small for the coffee, and sauntered out. Jeremiah had heard worse. Slurs disguised as compliments, customers clutching wallets when he approached, the subtle sting of being called boy by people who didn't even notice they'd said it. Online, Vaughn's staff mocked him as that stubborn cook stuck in the 90s. He never responded. He just kept scrubbing counters, simmering stock, and opening the door each morning, as if hope could outlast reality. Tonight, though, as he tossed out a tray of unsold biscuits, even Jeremiah felt the truth settling in. Hope was running out. But then, through the diner's fog window, he saw something that stopped him cold. A woman, maybe 35, sat on the icy sidewalk near a bus stop, her coat threadbare against the biting wind. Beside her, a girl, no older than 8, huddled in a too-small jacket, clutching a stale bread roll. The woman broke off a piece, handed it to the girl, and forced a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Her hands trembled, not just from the cold, but from a bone-deep weariness. Jeremiah stood frozen, his breath catching. He glanced back at the diner. The elderly woman didn't notice. The teenager didn't care. Outside, eyes from Vaughn's Bistro were probably watching, ready to sneer. He didn't care. He pushed open the door, the bell jingling faintly. "You two eating today?" he asked, his voice low but steady. The woman's head snapped up, her dark eyes sharp with suspicion. "We're okay," she said, her tone firm but brittle. The girl glanced at the diner's warm glow and whispered, "It looks cozy in there." Jeremiah's heart twisted. He knew how this looked, a black man standing over a homeless mother and child. He could already hear the whispers from across the street. Still, he stepped aside. "Got some stew I was going to toss. Come in. It's warm." The woman hesitated, her grip tightening on her daughter. "We're not charity cases," she said, pride cutting through her exhaustion. "Didn't say you were," Jeremiah replied. "Just saying I got too much stew and not enough folks to eat it." After a long pause, she stood, brushing dirt from her coat. "I'm Linda," she said. "This is Mary." Jeremiah nodded. Jeremiah. He held the door open, ignoring the disapproving glance from the elderly woman inside. He led them to a booth near the heater where the warmth could sink into their bones. Behind the counter, he ladled steaming vegetable stew into bowls, catching the way Linda's hands, cracked and calloused, moved with a quiet precision as she adjusted Mary's scarf. Her face, though etched with fatigue, held a fierce clarity, like someone who'd seen too much but refused to break. Mary's eyes lit up at the first spoonful, and Linda's shoulders softened, just a fraction. "Thank you," Linda said quietly, her voice carrying a weight Jeremiah recognized, gratitude laced with wariness. As they ate, Mary looked around the empty diner. "Why is it so quiet?" she asked. Jeremiah followed her gaze to Vaughn's glowing facade across the street. "Used to be louder," he said. "Times change." Linda's eyes flicked to the bistro, then back to him. She didn't ask, but he saw the question in her stare. He offered a tired smile and said nothing. Later, as they finished, Jeremiah returned with a quilt and a key. "If you don't have a place tonight, there's a room in the back. Not fancy, but it's warm. Safe." Linda studied him, her eyes searching for a catch. She'd learned not to trust kindness. It always came with strings. But something in Jeremiah's steady gaze made her pause. "One night," she said finally. He nodded. "One night's enough." That night, as he locked the front door, Jeremiah glanced across the street, where Richard Vaughn raised a wine glass to a laughing crowd. Then he turned off the diner's lights, leaving only a soft glow from the back room, where Linda and Mary slept. For the first time in years, the diner didn't feel so empty. But what he didn't know was that this small act of kindness was about to unravel a secret that would change everything. Someone was watching, and they weren't here to help. The morning sun crept through the diner's windows, painting golden streaks across the worn linoleum. Jeremiah trudged downstairs from his cramped apartment above the diner, his back aching from another night on a sagging mattress. But as he reached the bottom step, he froze. The diner wasn't just clean, it gleamed. Tables sparkled, chairs were aligned with military precision, and the salt shakers stood like sentinels, filled to the brim. Even the faded welcome mat by the door was straight, its fringes combed out. The air smelled faintly of lemon polish, not the usual stale coffee. From the back, soft footsteps echoed. Linda emerged, a damp rag in one hand, a trash bag in the other. Mary trailed behind, clutching the quilt, her eyes still heavy with sleep. "You didn't have to do this," Jeremiah said, his voice rough with surprise. Linda shrugged. "You gave us a place to stay. Least I could do." Her tone was matter-of-fact, but there was a quiet pride in it, like she'd reclaimed a piece of herself in the act. Mary climbed into a booth, hugging her knees. "It smells nice in here," she said, and Jeremiah let out a low chuckle, the sound foreign to his own ears. Linda's lips twitched, almost a smile. "You ever worked in a place like this?" he asked, leaning against the counter. "Not exactly," Linda said, her eyes scanning the room. "But I've cleaned enough kitchens to know my way around. You learn fast when you've got no choice." Her voice held no self-pity, just truth. Jeremiah nodded, sensing the weight behind her words. He wanted to ask more, but he'd lived long enough to know some stories only come when they're ready. Instead, he said, "I could use the help. Haven't had anyone reliable since my old chef walked out. Took my recipes, my trust, and sold them to Vaughn across the street." Linda's gaze flicked to the bistro's glowing sign. "That guy?" she asked, her tone sharp. Jeremiah nodded. "Richard Vaughn. Big money, bigger ego. Opened that place and made sure everyone knew my diner was done. Spread lies about health violations, bad food. People believed him." He paused, bitterness creeping into his voice. "They always do." Linda's eyes softened, but she didn't offer pity. "People look down on a lot of things they don't understand," she said. Last place we stayed, a shelter. They kicked us out because Mary cried too much at night. Said we were disruptive. Jeremiah glanced at Mary, now tracing patterns on the window's condensation. "I'm sorry," he said. "Don't be," Linda replied. "We keep going. Always do." A silence settled, not heavy, but warm, like the diner itself. Jeremiah cleared his throat. "If you want to stay, help out. I can pay what I can. It's not much, but the room's yours as long as you need it." Linda studied him, her guard still up. "You sure? We're not exactly good for business." Jeremiah met her gaze. "I'm not here to impress folks who never cared. I just need someone who shows up." For the first time, Linda smiled, a small, cautious curve of her lips. "Then we'll stay. For now." As the coffee machine gurgled to life, Mary piped up, "It really smells better in here." And for the first time in months, Jeremiah felt it too. Not just the polish or the company, but something deeper, like the diner was waking up. But what he didn't see was the shadow lingering outside, watching through the window, a phone pressed to their ear, whispering plans that could snuff out that fragile spark. Some secrets don't stay buried, and someone was about to make sure this diner never got its second chance. Days turned into weeks, and Mason's diner began to breathe again. Linda worked like she was born in the kitchen, her movements silent but sure, as if she could sense what needed doing before Jeremiah said a word. She scrubbed pans, restocked shelves, and straightened menus, but it was more than that. There was a rhythm to her, a quiet confidence that felt like it belonged to someone who'd once commanded more than a failing diner stove. One stormy Wednesday night, the diner was nearly empty, rain hammering the windows like it wanted to break in. Jeremiah sipped lukewarm coffee, watching Linda sweep the floor. Mary sat in a booth, coloring on a napkin with a crayon someone had left behind. The quiet felt comfortable, like a home Jeremiah hadn't known he'd missed. "You eaten yet?" he asked Linda suddenly. She paused. "Not yet. I was going to cook," he said, standing, "but I'm tired of my own recipes. Same old stuff since my chef left. It's uninspired." Linda tilted her head, her eyes curious. "Want me to try something?" Jeremiah hesitated. The kitchen was his last stronghold, the one piece of the diner he hadn't let anyone touch. But Linda's steady gaze and Mary's quiet presence softened something in him. "Go for it," he said, stepping aside. Linda walked into the kitchen like she'd been waiting for the invitation her whole life. Jeremiah sat at the counter, listening to the symphony of her movements. Pans clanging softly, a knife chopping with precision, the faint sizzle of oil. It wasn't rushed or showy. It was deliberate, like she was telling a story no one else could hear. 20 minutes later, she emerged with 2 plates, one for him, one for Am Solo. No flair, just roasted pork chops glazed with honey and thyme, mashed yams with a hint of nutmeg, and sautéed greens kissed with apple cider vinegar. The smell alone stopped Jeremiah mid-breath. He took a bite and froze. It wasn't just food, it was memory, warmth, a hug from someone long gone. Mary's eyes widened as she ate, her usual shyness replaced by a quiet joy. Jeremiah set his fork down. "You're telling me you haven't cooked professionally?" Linda wiped her hands on a towel, her expression guarded. "I've been in kitchens. Not lately." "That's not just kitchen work," he said. "That's art." She gave a half smile, almost shy. "Used to be who I was, before things changed." "What changed?" he asked, softened now. Her gaze drifted to Mary, then back to him. "Life," she said simply. "It takes things away sometimes." He didn't push. He knew the shape of that kind of loss, the kind that leaves holes you don't talk about. But as the night wore on, the food lingered, not just in their stomachs, but in the air, in the diner's pulse. The next day, Jeremiah asked her to cook again, just a small dish for the regulars. She made cornbread muffins with a chili lime butter that made an old trucker linger an extra half hour. A widow who hadn't smiled in weeks asked for seconds. Slowly, people noticed. They weren't just eating, they were feeling something. Linda stayed out of the spotlight, letting the food speak. But Jeremiah couldn't stop watching her hands. Steady, sure, like they'd once held more than just a spatula. One night, after closing, they sat at the counter, Mary asleep in a booth. You could have taken that talent anywhere, Jeremiah said. Why stay here? Linda stared into her tea. Because you opened a door. No questions, just stew. That's rare. Didn't seem like much, he said. It was everything, she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. Outside, the rain had stopped, and a few stars pierced the city's haze. The diner's lights hummed softly, and for the first time in years, Jeremiah felt a flicker of hope. But across the street, Richard Vaughn watched from his bistro, his smile sharp as a blade. He wasn't about to let a failing diner steal his spotlight. Success comes with a price, and someone was about to make them pay. The diner's revival didn't go unnoticed. Customers trickled in, old regulars, curious newcomers, drawn by whispers of food that tasted like home. Linda stayed in the kitchen, her focus unbreakable, while Jeremiah handled the front, his gruff warmth winning over skeptics. Mary started drawing little menus for the specials, her crayons adding color to the diner's faded charm. But success breeds envy, and Richard Vaughn wasn't a man who liked to lose. One chilly evening, Jeremiah found a flyer taped to the diner's door. Glossy, expensive, it read, Asterisk Vaughn's Bistro versus Mason's Diner. The ultimate culinary showdown. One winner. Loser shuts down. Asterisk, the date was set for a week away in the town square with judges, media, and a crowd. Jeremiah's jaw tightened as he read it again. Linda stepped outside, wiping her hands. What's that? A setup, Jeremiah said. Vaughn's trying to bury us publicly. Linda scanned the flyer, her face unreadable. You didn't agree to this. Didn't have to, he said. He's already got the press, the influencers, the whole town talking. If we back out, we're cowards. If we lose, we're done. Linda's eyes narrowed. You want to walk away? Jeremiah laughed bitterly. And let him win? No, but he's got a team, money, tricks. We got what? A few recipes and a half-empty pantry. Linda didn't flinch. Then we don't play his game. We cook what we know. Real food. Let them decide. The week flew by in a blur of preparation. Jeremiah and Linda worked late, perfecting dishes that didn't need flash, just heart. Mary helped, folding napkins and writing good luck notes for customers. The town buzzed with anticipation, whispers circling about the mysterious woman in Mason's kitchen. Some called her a drifter, others sensed she was more. The showdown arrived under a crisp autumn sky. The town square was packed, tents, food trucks, and cameras everywhere. Vaughn strutted under his banner, his team in crisp white chef coats, while Jeremiah and Linda worked quietly in their modest tent. The first rounds were tight. Linda's fried catfish with remoulade edged out Vaughn's lobster tartlets. Her pecan-crusted chicken won hearts in round 2, but Vaughn's truffle-dusted scallops dazzled the judges' eyes, tying the score. The night before the final round, Jeremiah and Linda stayed late, planning their closer, braised oxtails with buttery cornbread and a blackberry cobbler that could make you cry. It was bold, soulful, a love letter to their roots. But when they arrived at dawn, the kitchen was a disaster. The fridge was unplugged, meat spoiled, produce scattered, spices dumped on the floor. Jeremiah's fist slammed the counter. Vaughn, he growled. Linda stood in the doorway, her face calm, but her eyes blazing. She sifted through the wreckage, 2 potatoes, a bag of carrots, a jar of dried herbs. It's not over, she said. Not over. Jeremiah snapped. We got nothing. He's serving caviar and filet mignon, and we're left with scraps. Linda's voice was steel. I learned to cook with less than this. When I was a kid, we had nothing but roots and grit. My mama taught me you don't need much to make something real. She grabbed a knife. I'll make carrot soup. You handle the rest. Jeremiah stared, disbelief giving way to something else. Trust. They worked in silence, Linda turning carrots and potatoes into a velvety soup laced with ginger and thyme. Jeremiah crafting simple herb rolls from flour and scraps. It was humble, almost embarrassingly so. When they carried it to the tent, Vaughn laughed outright. What's this? Soup kitchen chic. The judges tasted Vaughn's dish first, seared venison with a berry reduction, plated like a painting. Then Linda's soup, served in plain bowls with a roll on the side. The crowd held its breath. An older judge, a retired chef, took a spoonful and paused, eyes closing. This is my mother's kitchen, he said, voice thick. This is love. Another judge, a food critic, nodded. It's not flashy, but it's honest. It's home. When the scores came in, Mason's Diner won. Not by a landslide, but by a truth no one could deny. The crowd roared, not just for the food, but for what it meant. Vaughn's smile faltered, his charm cracking. Linda stood tall, silent, as if she'd known all along. Someone was about to reveal a secret that could destroy everything. The victory buzzed through the town like wildfire. Customers packed Mason's Diner, the chef's choice board drawing lines out the door. Linda stayed in the kitchen, her focus unshaken, while Mary's crayon menus became a local legend. But the triumph felt fragile, like a flame in a storm. One evening, as the diner hummed with life, a woman approached the counter. She was in her 50s, elegant, with a leather notebook clutched tightly. "I need to speak to the chef," she said, her voice low but urgent. Jeremiah called Linda out. The woman's eyes widened. "Linda Carter?" she asked. Linda froze, her face a mask. "That's not my name anymore." The woman stepped closer. "I'm Clara Hayes, former dean at the Culinary Institute of Chicago. I knew you as a Linda Carter, top of your class, destined for Michelin stars. Until that scandal, the one I never believed." The diner fell silent. Mary looked up from her coloring, eyes wide. Jeremiah's heart sank as the pieces clicked. Linda swallowed hard. "That was a lifetime ago." Clara's voice softened. "They said you embezzled funds from your restaurant. I didn't buy it. Your food today, it's the same soul I saw back then, but stronger." "What happened?" Linda's hands clenched. "Someone framed me. My partner doctored the books, pinned it on me. I lost everything, my career, my name, my home. I didn't fight back. I had Mary to protect." Her voice broke just for a second. Clara nodded, tears in her eyes. "You're still a chef. This town tasted it. They chose you." Across the street, Vaughn's bistro closed quietly, its windows dark. Rumors swirled that Vaughn had sabotaged the diner's kitchen, but no one listened to his denials. The town had made its choice, but the story wasn't over. One night, a stranger slipped into the diner, leaving an envelope on the counter. Inside was a photo of Linda, younger, in a chef's coat, smiling at a culinary gala. On the back, scrawled in red ink, "Asterisk, you can't hide forever, Linda." Asterisk, Jeremiah found Linda staring at the photo, her face pale. "Who sent this?" he asked. "Someone who wants to drag me back," she whispered. "But I'm not running anymore. The past doesn't let go easily." And someone was coming for revenge. Winter settled over the town, but Mason's Diner glowed with warmth. Linda and Jeremiah worked side by side, their partnership unspoken but unbreakable. Mary's laughter filled the booths, her drawings now framed on the walls. The diner wasn't just surviving, it was thriving, a beacon for those who needed more than food. One snowy morning, Linda unveiled the Hearth Project, a weekly free meal for anyone in need, no questions asked. The first night, a family came in, shivering and hesitant. Jeremiah served them steaming bowls of Linda's sweet potato stew, and the youngest child whispered, "This tastes like my dad's cooking." Linda's hands paused, her eyes shimmering. She didn't speak, but she didn't need to. The threatening note was never traced, but Linda stood taller, as if shedding the weight of her past. Jeremiah watched her, pride swelling in his chest. "We're partners now, you know," he said one night, leaning on the counter. Linda smirked. "Took you long enough to admit it." The next day, a new sign appeared above the diner, painted in bold, simple letters. Asterisk, home is a plate shared with heart. Asterisk, no one knew who wrote it, but everyone who walked and felt it. The diner wasn't just a place to eat. It was a place where broken things mended, where strangers became family. This story isn't just about a diner or a meal. It's about what happens when you open your door to someone who's lost everything. Jeremiah and Linda didn't just save a business. They saved each other, and a town found its heart again. What act of kindness has changed your life? Share in the comments, and let's keep this story alive. Hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a tale of hope, heart, and second chances. Until next time, Keep your door open. You never know who might walk in and change everything.